And welcome to Football So What with me, Graeme Saux.
And me, Charlie Baker.
And this is brought to you by Machine Football.
Yes. Machine Football.
How are you, Charlie?
I'm very good, Graham. What a weekend of 0-0s.
I know, so many draws.
So many draws. You're like me, you cover football at weekends. I do a show on Virgin Radio that is all the goals as they go in, and then we play records, and then we play the goals. I played a lot of records this weekend.
12-inch summer remixes of Wham.
And here's the complete Meatloaf album, Bad Out of Hell.
Yeah, it was frustrating, wasn't it? Because you see the jeopardy now at this time of the season where some teams are sort of would rather not lose the game than necessarily win it. And I hesitate when I say that, because you never go onto the pitch saying a draw's enough. You just don't. But if you've trained and the manager has made you think that way, and you know that actually a point is a good point given where you are in the league, you can't help it. You just hold back a tiny bit, and it's 1 or 2% not quite committing the same way. And it's the tightening up, I suppose. We've seen.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, because as a fan, you sometimes think, "Oh, they're playing for a draw." What would the manager do differently in the week, or what would the players do differently on the day that would cause that?
I think it's just a subtle sort of change. It's not anything that's spoken about. I think it's just the inference, how you set up, who you put forward in certain moments in games, how as fullbacks you attack. Maybe you don't attack quite as much. So everything just becomes a little bit more, I don't want to say conservative, because it's more subtle than that, but it's a slight change. And I played in many games where, actually a draw was enough. If it was a Champions League match, played against Italy in Rome in the World Cup qualifier, and as long as we didn't lose that game, we were through to the World Cup finals. And it's the worst feeling as a player, because there's a halfway house where you sort of, as the game goes on, you get more entrenched in that we're nearly there. So the vulnerability around, obviously, that's what we did see, didn't we, over the weekend, was teams that were 1-0 up conceding a goal late on. And and that's the beauty generally of the Premier League. I think it's changed a little bit over the years, but when I was playing in the Premier League, you always knew a 1-0 was never enough, and that was why teams would carry on, attacking at 1-2-0 up. Yeah. Even if you're 3-0 up and the opponent scores with 20 minutes to go, you all have a look at each other and and think, oh god, here we go, we're going to have to really dig in here.
Yeah, it must be so annoying. If you're 4-0 down or something, oh god, we still got to really try.
Yeah, but the fans, this is where the fans come in though, because that glimmer of hope that the sort of the British fans, sort of the sense that they get from that it's really demanding, and it transmits onto the pitch, because if you're 4-0 down and you score, suddenly your fans are like, oh, maybe.
Yeah.
So I think that's why the Premier League and the English leagues are so competitive. One, because you get a lot of away fans. A lot of other leagues, Spain, very few fans travel. So you've got that atmosphere from the away fans. And two, it's that sort of the hope that kills you. And I think it does more so in English football than anywhere else. I think fans really get behind the team in a way that creates that extra demand and energy on the pitch.
Yeah. Someone who did score a goal at the age of 16 years and how many days was it, Graham? Do you know how many days it was?
356, maybe?
6 days. It was
not quite sure, but
Max Dowman.
Yes.
Now, the youngest ever Premier League player, Graham, to score, not the youngest ever top flight player to score, because that was, do you know the answer to the question?
I don't. I'm glad you said that, though, because football didn't exist before the Premier League.
Jason Dazelle scored when he was 16 years and 57 days.
Wow.
Do you want to know another fact about that, which is sensational?
He was playing for Torquay?
No, he's playing for Ipswich. His son, Andre, made his debut when he was 16 and scored on his debut.
Wow. So it's in the family.
Scored when they were 16, yeah.
That's incredible.
But Max Dowman, people have been saying his name for a long time. Does Machine Football have any data on Max Dowman?
Well, we've had a good look, and we had to have a really deep dive, and there's very little on him. Because we don't cover some of the development football. We have got players of that age in the system, and he is in the system, but there's just not enough first team football that gives it, makes a case really to show what he's good at. So it's all about the eye. And when you see him, and funnily enough, because he's been on the bench quite a lot this season, when I've been covering Arsenal, I always watch the players that are on the bench warming up and just sort of seeing how they are, the body language, whether there's sort of younger players that stand out. I remember Elliot Anderson was a sub at Newcastle, and look, obviously he was older and had a bit more of a reputation. Same with Max Dowman. You see him, he's so well balanced as a player. And the goal's a great example of that. He made that look so easy. Just the way his understanding of the opponent, his own movement, and the ball all together, and just sort of drifted past a couple of players. And you can see that why his reputation at that level is so high. But also the hardest thing for any player, particularly when you're so young and you haven't even developed physically at that stage, is the transition from sort of academy football or youth football into first team football. The levels go up so much, and it doesn't matter.
We see it a lot in the non-leagues, because you'll get a lot of younger people, younger players come on loan, and it's the first time they've played against men for 3 points. That's what we always say, and it's first time you're playing against people, you're taking food off their table if you win. Whereas in the academy system, the under-23s, a lot of nice football gets played, a lot of a sort of petty aggression, but you're not actually playing for 3 points. And at the non-league level, players sink or swim, but in the Premier League, it must be absolutely, the levels must be unbelievable.
Yeah, and it's sort of everything will be happening faster. As I said, the physicality, you haven't got time to make decisions. Now, again, stepping across from academy building to the first team training, that is part of the education for these players, and being made to feel comfortable as well by the first team pros. So seeing sort of what a special talent he is, you can see that by the way the senior players.
Graeme, didn't he?
He totally did. Yeah,
he came on. He changed the game. The game was going nowhere. It was drifting towards a 0-0.
Yeah, and
his added energy and his pace and skill and enthusiasm.
Exactly.
Just. It was Rooney-esque.
Yep.
The fact that we saw Rooney's whole career and it happened like that, it's the first time I've seen a player where I've thought this kid's got something, but then equally they can disappear, these young people.
Yeah, and you have to look at there's a couple of things there. One, absolutely, in terms of he came and played with that freedom that Arsenal have been lacking. They've definitely tightened up, and we've got some Machine Football have got some interesting reference points for how they played last season in certain features, and how they've come down off that level this year. Although actually their system fit, the way they play together, the cohesion between the players has improved this year. So there's different ways of measuring that team unity. But Max came on and brought that energy, brought that direct sort of positive play that they haven't really been showing for quite some time. And your point there about whether he stays and develops or hopefully not, that he's a sort of it goes to his head and he doesn't
trains on, as they say.
Yeah, exactly. From that point of view, one, again, it's down to the dressing room, around the people around him, the coaching staff, but also other players that have been through a similar thing. I would think the biggest example of him would be Miles Lewis-Skelly, who had this sensational introduction to Arsenal and looked, last season we were talking about him being definitely going to be England's left back for the World Cup, and now he can't get a game, and there's a frustration there. So what players like Max and the other young players can do is learn from someone like Miles Lewis-Skelly, and actually they can all help each other. I think when you've got a group of young players coming through, that's when they all help each other through those ups and downs of development.
Yeah, cool head for that goal as well. It's not like he had to sort of do a snapshot in the box or anything, but he still had time to miss it, as they say. What was Graeme Saux' first ever league goal?
I think I scored against Luton at Stamford Bridge in one of my early games. I would have had floppy late 80s hair, thinking I was in a sort of one of the pop groups at the time. So hair bouncing up and down. I think it was like 8 yards out, but 8 yards out on a pitch in the late 80s.
Yeah.
that could be 40 metres out because the
Exactly.
quality of the surface was so bad you could just as easily hoof it sort of over
to some finish.
It was all right.
Some finish, Graeme.
It was a tap in. It was a sort of a bit of a tap in from 8 yards, but I did have time to think about missing. If I miss this, I'll never recover. But I didn't, and that was my first goal. Yeah, it wasn't as memorable as his, I wouldn't say, but yeah, it's such an amazing feeling.
It had that Wayne Rooney. Remember that? Remember the name?
Yes,
Wayne Rooney when he wanged it in. I think it passed Seaman, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that was
for Everton.
That was an incredible goal. That absolutely spectacular. That sort of said everything about what was going to come from Wayne Rooney. Those special goals that he scored, and he scored so many of them. Absolutely incredible. Quick question for you. So Max was 16. I was probably 20 when I scored when I was a late developer.
Goals, Graeme,
what were you? No, but what were you doing at 16?
Oh, I've been always very driven, Graeme.
Yeah,
I'm a very driven. I started tap dancing when I was 5, and I was doing show business since I was 10. So I've always had an idea of what I wanted to do.
Yeah,
I joined the National Youth Theatre when I was 16 and did a West End show with Lionel Bart and play a show called Maggie May. So
wow. So were you the theatre equivalent of Max Dowman then?
Very much so. Yeah. I was going to be the one. I was supposed to be the one, but then I changed my mind and became a dirty nightclub comic instead. So that's what happened.
He could probably learn a couple of things from you then.
Yeah, I perhaps if Max wants a chat, happy to go and have a chat with him. Definitely. I think the relegation scrap got interesting this weekend. I think Leeds are being dragged into it.
Definitely. It's funny with Leeds because they're so incredible as a club. When you go to Ellen Road, and Lee Dixon and I talk about this a lot when we're working together about the best atmospheres in the Premier League when we played, and he would always say Leeds. I would say that's one of the most hostile in the sense that I was generally a Chelsea player, and obviously the relationship between Leeds and Chelsea since the 70s. But it is an incredible place, and you feel that no place represents the 12th man, shall we say, than Leeds and their fans, and you sort of think that's enough to get them over the line, but it isn't.
Is that because they're still at Ellen Road and it's still pretty old school stadium and tight to the ground and all that sort of?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, you have to. I think every football club has to represent the community in terms of its identity, the fans, the city itself. And Leeds does that as much, if not more, than many places. And they've retained, because of the stadium, and they've got big plans to change stadiums and develop that stadium. But they're
getting dragged into it, and I don't think they know they are. I don't get the feeling they know they are yet.
No, and maybe the weekend was the moment. When you look at the teams that are just behind them, so Forest, West Ham, obviously Spurs. You look at those three teams, and they've got bigger, better, and more expensive squads on paper.
Yeah,
it feels like Nottingham Forest. I'm unsure of them because I don't quite know what direction they're going to go in. There's so much instability at the club, like Spurs. I feel West Ham. I was at West Ham for the City game on Saturday evening, and I feel that they've got something about them. Nuno's he's got that calmness. The team are just starting to play to a style that suits them. They're well linked up. Yeah. And so Leeds, like you say, Leeds have got that incredible energy, but they have to take chances when they get them, and they have because they just haven't got the level of player. They've got Calvert-Lewin's a really good player.
Yeah, and he's come good, isn't he? Yeah,
exactly. They've got bright sparks in that team, but just as a group, you just wonder whether they're quite as competitive with quality Premier Leagues up against them week in, week out. I'm not quite sure what their running is, Leeds. But it's going to be for all of them. I think it's going to go right down to the wire. There'll be 2 or 3 in there.
Farke can't take another team down, surely.
No,
he's got a few relegations from the Prem on his CV.
Yeah, he's got that reputation almost, which I think is unfair because he's brought teams up, and then it's the hardest job, getting promoted, then staying in the league. I think that I do think the recruitment at Leeds has been a bit better, but there's still gaps in quality where they need they need another level, but it's hard to do that in one season. So I think that first season is always going to be a tough one. They're fortunate in the sense that they've got, you wouldn't have said West Ham, Forest, and certainly Spurs would be, fighting a relegation battle with Leeds. You'd think it would be other teams that have got smaller squads. So if I had to sort of guess now, I would say that I think Leeds might just about scrape through and hold on. I'd rather have the points and be Leeds.
Yeah,
and the fans
it's a really exciting battle, isn't it? It's a really exciting battle because Spurs are on the slide. I mean, they obviously got their equaliser late. I thought it was bad news for Spurs, to be honest, that they scored that equaliser, because that means Tudor probably stays. and I know, I mean, for a new manager bounce, he's not a very bouncy guy. I don't quite know what he's trying to do, what his playing style is. He seems to be playing players in the wrong positions. You want your Mike Bassett, gentlemen, we're going to play 4-4-2, to come in many ways, but I don't know who the answer is there.
No, and they've rolled the dice with Tudor. Look, again, this isn't sort of excuse time for Tottenham, but they're absolutely decimated with injuries. They've had sendings off, haven't they?
Everyone has injuries, don't they? That's part and parcel of the game.
It is, but I think they had 2, maybe 3 first teamers on the bench. The rest were young players, and like you say, you have to absorb that, and every club has a season or a period of season where you have a catalogue of injury, or you lose 3 players in the same position all at once. So I'm not saying that as an excuse, but as an underlying sort of answer to the system maybe, and to the personnel. We've spoken about Archie Gray. Bless him, he's played 7 different positions probably this season. And you've got a goalkeeper goalkeeping position which is totally vulnerable. Vicario again. Should have, I thought, saved the Szoboszlai free kick. Right. He then makes a couple of very good saves. Kinski is sat on the bench now, and Tudor's created a problem for himself there where he didn't need to. I think that's self-inflicted, because there was the upside to what he did was tiny compared to what's actually happened, which is, you've created a crisis.
Once it starts to go like that, once you make yourself memeable, like Tudor shaking the hand of the guy and it not being Arne Slot, it's just some bold bloke. I don't know if you saw
I didn't see that.
So he went and shook his hand and sort of, tried to go have a good hug. It was obvious that he realised then, oh God, that's not Arne Slot. And so when things like that start to happen, like with Thomas Frank and the Arsenal Cup, if you make yourself memeable, or it just only seems to go one way. But look, that draw, that last minute goal might be the bit that saves them. Might shift the momentum. Finally, a bit of luck.
Yeah, and it's a good point, isn't it, for them? As we were saying at the beginning of this, is that that becomes a really good point, because I think people were expecting another disappointment, another poor performance.
Beat Forest next week. They've got Forest next week. Huge, suddenly a huge game. You can drag. I mean, Nuno Espirito Santo has got revenge in his mind. If he can send either West Ham or Spurs down, I mean, revenge is a pretty strong emotion, and I think he'll have that in his mind. If he can send either of those teams down and say, look, you got rid of me and you got it wrong.
Yeah, I think you meant Nottingham Forest, not West Ham, though, Charlie. Because if he's happy to send West Ham down, then he's basically sinking his own ship.
You knew what I meant. I was amazed I remembered Nuno Espirito Santo, Graeme. So we're all doing very well, really.
With the couple of good things for Spurs, if you're going to try and be optimistic. One, I thought they played with a lot more spirit. To come back from a goal down at Anfield. I know we can talk about Liverpool all day, obviously, but I thought they showed really good sort of team effort, and I think they did decide that they weren't going to feel sorry for themselves. He said that to them before, didn't he? He said you can either fight or cry, and they definitely had a fight in them, which was optimistic. The other thing is, as you rightly say, Tottenham have to play all of those teams around them. So destiny is in their own hands, and you think if they can't beat those 3 or 2 of those 3 teams, then you get into a point where actually, as much as we all want Tottenham to stay in the Premier League, But because they're such a fantastic club, such a big club with that history as well, magnificent stadium, they will be better. But ultimately, if they can't win 2 of those 3 games, they don't deserve to stay in the league.
Who does machine football say stays up? Does it have that sort of capability?
It doesn't, I'm afraid. So what we'll do is we'll do a comparison of the 4 of them, Charlie, and we'll have a little look at where we feel the strengths or the weaknesses are going to either keep them up or indicate that they could get relegated.
Yeah, that's great. That's really interesting.
And then the other thing, I think, player of the weekend. Do you anyone stand out to you?
Player of the weekend. I thought it was a really boring weekend's football, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone really stood out. And you have to just go for little flashes. Like, I'm going to say Max Dowman because he did come on, he did change that game. And that might, you've got to stay that many points, they're 9 points ahead of Man City. Leading is difficult, isn't it?
Yeah.
You will have felt that when you won the league. When you're in front, you're suddenly aware of the hooves coming up behind you. Sorry, I've been at Cheltenham all week. But, so you go. That's so you need that little bit of magic. I'm going to say Max Dowman. Who would you say?
I would probably say Bruno Fernandes, I think, on the basis that Manchester United, they're 3rd in the league now. You think they finished a lucky 15th last year. And they were so poor.
He's been the one that's kept them on in all the downtime, or despite him acting like a 6-year-old at times on the pitch. He has kept them moving forwards, hasn't he? He's kept them honest.
Yeah, he's one of those players, and there aren't many of them that can be in a team that's really underperforming and still be as good as they always are.
Yeah,
because he's such an individual.
Sabozlai for Liverpool this season
exactly
is the one player playing.
Yeah. And if you look at Bruno Fernandes, his goal involvements, his progressive passes in terms of the passes that make a difference. Obviously, his assists. He's just overtaken David Beckham in the big. I think the most assists in a season. Yeah. The way he sees the game when he's at this level is fantastic. Really real quality. And the difference is that because the other players around him are playing much better, and you've got players like Cunha and Mbeumo in the squad and in the team. You see how good players link with good players. They just take the game to another level. And everybody's level raises.
What's Carrick done? What's Carrick done that Ruben Amorim wasn't doing?
He's taken all the noise away. He's put players in positions where they want to, where they're best fit. He's got players, I think, really confident in their own position and then in what the team structure is. There's a much more discipline behind the ball as well now. So we always think about teams in possession, how, just the creativity of a team and wow, this winger and what. But it's actually how you're set up behind the ball is really important. So when you lose it, that in transition, as people like to call it, how you're set up is really important. So as a defender or as part of a defensive line, knowing what your role is as you're building up through the pitch, when you lose the ball, what your first positions are. And it's you're not micromanaged, but it's just that link you build between the team. So then that's your baseline, and then everything else becomes sort of easier. And it's just, that whole system that Ruben Amorim played was just so poorly fitting.
Saux started scoring, and all those things. And that's no coincidence that when those things are right, that your strikers start playing.
Yeah, and again, if you think of it as a sort of a foundation to, in possession and out of possession, you've got 2 foundations. Once you've got those in place, then players can start to do what they're good at, because they're in the right position to do that. They're confident. And it's this sort of self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? It starts building that momentum. And I'm trying to sort of make a comparison with something else, with your world, where you have a script, you have a role to play, but within that role, you can either feel really confident about it or not so confident about it. And sometimes that shows. Sometimes you get away with it.
But in my game, if once a year used to. Everyone would go up to the Edinburgh Festival and you'd know if you'd done enough work or not.
Yeah.
Because because you'd get there and you go, I've not got a show, and what you'd end up doing is you do more crowd work. You just do loads of crowd work, and then your show would be actual show that you'd written would be about 10 minutes.
Is that
like a sad bit at 45 minutes where you go, and that's when I learned that actually I had athlete's foot, or something. And then you go, anyway, a little bit more crowd work. And anyway, thanks for coming.
Wow, that's brilliant. So that's like the filler, is it?
That's your filler. Yeah, that's maybe what Ruben Amorim was doing, was going, just do crowd work for 60 minutes. And then get into some positions.
That's a brilliant analogy. And just finishing off with Bruno Fernandes and rolling it forwards. Obviously, we talk about the national teams and heading towards the World Cup. I mean, Bruno Fernandes in that form, in that Portuguese team who are ranked sixth in the world.
I think they are not favourites, but I think they are really strong going into the World Cup, Portugal.
Really strong. I mean, you think you've got Bernardo Silva, haven't you? Ruben Diaz, Pedro Neto,
and they've
Ronaldo.
All played together like that an awful lot and won things. So
and so his form now must be, Roberto Martinez must be thinking this is great because he's in absolutely sensational form. But
hopefully
at the same time,
clatter him on the last day of the season.
He'll be out there when he'll be pushing people away.
Maguire. Oh, sorry, mate. In training. Oh, sorry, mate.
Brilliant. Good.
Lovely, Graeme. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed our chat. Thank you so much.
No problem. We'll head over to machinefootball.com for more about the machine, and we'll get those things together around.
Let me know who's going to go down with you, Graeme. That's what everybody would like to know.
Thanks, Charlie. And remember to head over to machinefootball.com, the app for everyday football intelligence.
This is football, so what?